You have to understand the bond first. Before the fame, before the money, before the world knew his name, there was just him and his mother, Elvis and Gladys. It wasn't a normal mother-son relationship, it was something deeper, almost primal. They were two parts of the same whole. He was born a twin, but his brother Jesse was stillborn. From that moment, it was like all the love, all the hopes, all the fears that would have been shared were focused entirely on him. And he focused them right back on her. They were poor, not just a little short on cash, but deep in the bones Mississippi poor. They lived in a two-room house his father built. Sometimes there wasn't enough to eat. In that kind of world, you cling to what you have, and what they had was each other. Gladys was a nervous woman, prone to worry. She worried about everything, but mostly she worried about her boy. She walked him to school every day holding his hand, well past the age when other boys would have been embarrassed. He didn't seem to mind. He would talk to her in a private baby talk they had, even when he was a teenager. It was their own language, a world built for two. When he was a boy, he promised her that one day he'd be rich. He'd buy her a big house and a pink Cadillac. It was a child's dream, born out of a desire to take away her worries. He wanted to fix everything for her. He wanted to give her the world because, in his eyes, she was the world. This wasn't just talk, it was the driving force behind everything he did. The ambition, the hunger, it all came from a place of wanting to make life better for Gladys. And then, it happened. The dream came true, bigger and faster than anyone could have imagined. Suddenly, the poor boy from Tupelo was the most famous man on the planet. He bought the big house, Graceland, and he bought the pink Cadillac. He moved his parents in with him. He showered his mother with gifts. But the fame was a strange and frightening thing. It built a wall around them. For Gladys, it was terrifying. The screaming crowds, the constant attention, the girls fainting at her son's feet. This wasn't the life she knew. She was a simple woman from a small town, and now she was living in a fishbowl. She was proud of him, of course, immensely proud. But she was also scared. She worried he was lonely in the middle of all that noise. She worried about the people around him. She worried he was working too hard. Her health, never very strong to begin with, began to decline. The stress and the displacement took a toll. She drank to calm her nerves, which only made things worse. Elvis saw it happening. The very success he had chased to make her happy was now, in a cruel twist, a source of her pain. He felt a deep gnawing guilt about it. Then came the U.S. Army. In 1958, at the absolute peak of his fame, Elvis was drafted. It was a massive news story. For him, it was a duty he felt he had to perform. But for Gladys, it was a catastrophe. Her boy, her only child, was being taken away from her. He was going to be sent to Germany, thousands of miles across an ocean. She was inconsolable. The day he left, with his hair cut short in an army buzz, she wept openly at the train station. Photographers captured the images. You can see the pure anguish on her face. It was the look of a person whose heart was being torn out. Elvis was stationed in Texas for basic training before being shipped overseas. He called her constantly. He worried about her, and she worried about him. Her health got worse. She had been diagnosed with hepatitis. While he was on a weekend pass, her condition became critical. He rushed back to Memphis to be with her. He sat by her hospital bed, holding her hand, talking to her in their private language, just like he always had. He never left her side. She died on August 14th, 1958. She was only 46 years old. The world stopped for Elvis. The king of rock and roll, the man who seemed untouchable, was completely and utterly broken. The grief was not quiet or dignified. It was a howling, primal scream of pain. At her funeral, he was a wreck. He sobbed uncontrollably, caressing her coffin, crying out, "Oh God, everything I have is gone!" He talked to her as if she could hear him, promising he would be with her soon. Friends and family had to physically restrain him, afraid he might throw himself into the grave. He had lost his anchor, he had lost his world, he was 23 years old, and completely adrift. After the funeral, he had to return to the army. He had to go to Germany. He was a shell of a man moving through the motions in a fog of grief. He was isolated, not just by geography, but by a pain so immense, he couldn't share it. This is where music came in, not rock and roll, not the music that made him famous. He turned to the music of his childhood, the music of the church. Gospel music was not a genre to Elvis. It was his foundation. It was the first music he ever knew. As a boy in Tupelo, his family went to the Assembly of God Church. The services were loud and full of spirit. People sang with their whole bodies, clapping and stomping, feeling the music in their souls. He absorbed it all. He loved the harmonies, the raw emotion, the stories of struggle and redemption. It was music that didn't just entertain, it testified. It spoke of hardship, of being lost, but also of finding a guiding hand in the darkness. Even after he became a star, gospel was his private comfort. After a big show, he wouldn't go out and party. He'd gather his band, or the vocal group of the Jordanaires, in his hotel room or back at Graceland. They would sit around a piano and sing gospel hymns until the sun came up. It was how he recharged. It was how he connected to something real, something pure, away from the madness of his public life. Now, in the depths of his grief over Gladys, he needed that music more than ever. It was the only thing that made sense. The pop songs he sang felt hollow, the rock and roll felt like a costume. But the old hymns, they spoke the language of his heart. They spoke of pain, of weariness, of needing help from a higher power. There was one song in particular. It was a song he had known for years, a staple in the churches he grew up in. But now, the words were not just lyrics. They were a raw, desperate prayer. The song was written by a man who knew a thing or two about loss. His name was Thomas Dorsey. In the 1920s, Dorsey was a successful blues musician known as Georgia Tom. He played with the greats, and he was good at it, but he also felt a pull towards sacred music. He began writing gospel songs, trying to blend the soulful, earthy feel of the blues with the spiritual message of the church. In 1932, Dorsey's life fell apart. He was in St. Louis for a big revival meeting, where he was scheduled to perform. His wife, Nettie, was back home in Chicago, pregnant with their first child. He was on top of the world. Then, he received a telegram. It was short and brutal. It told him to come home quick. His wife had died in childbirth. Dorsey was shattered. He rushed home to see his newborn son, only to have the baby die in his arms a day later. He lost everything in 24 hours, his wife and his son. The grief was bottomless. He renounced God. He cursed the music he had written. He said, "God has no heart. He's a hard-hearted man." Well, he was in a place of absolute despair, the same kind of despair Elvis would feel decades later. He felt abandoned, weak, and completely alone. A few days later, a friend took him to a neighbor's house and sat him down in front of a piano. Dorsey's hands were heavy. He had no music left in him. But then, as he sat there in the quiet of the evening, a melody came to him. The words began to form. Not from a place of strength or faith, but from a place of utter brokenness. He started to play and sing what he was feeling, like the words were a simple plea. They were the words of a man who could not take another step on his own. He was tired. He was weak. He was worn. He asked for a hand to hold, for a guide through the storm and the night. He didn't ask for answers. He didn't ask for the pain to go away. He just asked for someone to hold his hand and lead him home. It was a song of surrender. It was an admission of complete and total vulnerability. This was the song that found Elvis in his own darkness. He would have heard it his whole life, but now every word felt like it was written for him. Think about it from his perspective. He was thousands of miles from home, surrounded by strangers in an army barracks. The one person he could always talk to, the one person who understood his fears, was gone. He felt tired, the weight of his fame, the pressure of being Elvis Presley, and now the crushing weight of this loss. He felt weak. The public saw a superstar, but inside, he was just a boy who had lost his mom. He felt worn down by a life that had moved too fast and taken too much. The lyrics were a perfect mirror of his soul. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. He was in the middle of the worst storm of his life. The nights were long and empty. He needed a light, any light, to guide him. The core of the song, the simple, repeated plea, was everything he couldn't articulate. When you're in that much pain, you don't have the words. You can't form complex prayers. All you can do is ask for help. All you can do is reach out your hand and hope someone takes it. This song became his anthem of grief. It was his personal prayer. We know from people who were with him in Germany that he would play it or ask others to play it for him. It was a way for him to process his sorrow. Singing those words, he was connecting his own story to Thomas Dorsey's story and to the countless others who had sung that song from a place of pain. He wasn't Elvis Presley, the star. He was just another grieving soul looking for comfort. The song gave him a language for his loss. It allowed him to express the feeling of being a small, frightened child in a big, scary world without his mother. The line, "Lead me home," must have been particularly powerful. Home wasn't Graceland anymore. Home was wherever Gladys was. The song was a plea to be guided back to a place of safety, of peace, of unconditional love, the very things his mother had always represented. It wasn't a magic cure. The pain of losing his mother stayed with him his entire life. Many would say he never truly got over it, but the song was a tool for coping. It was a balm. It was a way to take an ocean of unbearable emotion and channel it into a 3-minute hymn. It gave his pain a voice. In those moments of singing, he let go of the strong facade he had to maintain for the world and just be a son missing his mother. He would go on to record the song officially. When you listen to his version, you can hear the difference. It's not a performance, it's a testimony. His voice is rich and deep, but there's a fragility there, a quiet ache that is absolutely real. He isn't trying to impress anyone with vocal acrobatics. He is simply singing from the heart, inhabiting the lyrics with the full weight of his own experience. He sings it slowly, deliberately, as if savoring each word, each plea. You can hear the sincerity. You can hear the memory of that profound loss. The song helped him by giving him a sacred space to be vulnerable. It connected him to his faith, to his roots, and to a shared human experience of suffering. It reminded him that he was not the first person to feel this way, and that even in the deepest darkness, it was okay to admit you are weak and to ask for a hand to hold. For a man who had to be the king, a symbol of strength and cool for the entire world, this was a profound act of release. So it allowed him to be human, it allowed him to grieve, it was more than just a song. It was a lifeline, it was a prayer whispered in the dark, it was a conversation with his mother and his God. It was a humble request from a boy who had everything the world could offer, but all he really wanted was to feel his mother's hand in his one more time. The song was Precious Lord, Take My Hand.